It's good. Good morning, HFC kids. Today we are making unleavened bread, which will come in handy when we talk about our story and the continuation of the story of Moses. So before we get into that story, let me show you how we make this. So first you'll use 3/4 of a cup of hot milk. And then you'll pour in 1/4 cup of honey. These ingredients are supposed to be as similar as we have to the types of ingredients that they would have been using in Moses' time. And then you also have 1/2 stick of melted butter. So I'm gonna stir all that together first so that that's all smooth. Now I'm going to add 1 beaten egg. It's already starting to drip into the bowl a little bit. Mix that in. So now we have all of our liquids mixed together. Now I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt to add some flavor, to bring some stuff out. Now, one of the reasons that it's called unleavened bread means that they don't have the ingredient in it, a yeast ingredient, that makes the bread rise. Normally when you think of bread, you think of fluffy, airy, light bread. But this bread that they would have been making wouldn't have that ingredient in it to make it fluffy and light. It's going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit chewier, but that's the way they would have made their unleavened bread. So, since we don't have that ingredient, we're just going to use flour. We're not gonna have the yeast in it. So we have 2 cups of flour. And I'm gonna add it slowly, just a little bit at a time, as I stir it and get it all mixed in. So you can make this at home with your mom and your brothers and sisters, even if you have little baby brothers and sisters, little ones. If they're big enough to dump something in, then they can help make this. And that way you can do something all together as a family. I'm gonna add a little more flour. And as you make it, you can talk about how in Moses' day, this is the way they would have made their bread. This is what they would have eaten. They don't have McDonald's or restaurants to go to. They would have made their food all homemade. So I'm gonna keep stirring this. And then once it's starting to, here I'll show you, it's starting to get thick and a little bit chunky. So once I get it all mixed together, I'm going to roll it out on some floured parchment paper and then poke some holes in it so that some air can circulate through it. And then I'm gonna bake it on a cookie sheet in the oven for about 15 minutes. So the past couple weeks, we've been learning about the life of Moses. God had a special plan of how he was going to do that, how he was going to convince Pharaoh to let the people go. And he was going to use Moses for that plan. And he started to explain it to him, and Moses said, God, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can speak to the Pharaoh. I don't think I can do what you're asking of me. And he said, I'll send you help. You have a brother, an Israelite brother named Aaron, and you and Aaron are going to be a team to represent Team God. And Team God is going to face against Team Pharaoh in Egypt. Pharaoh was going to represent the kingdom of Egypt, and they were going to battle. That was God's plan. They were going to try and fight against each other and see who would win. The most powerful nation in the world, the most powerful king on earth, the most powerful, strong, amazing. He had magicians, he had money, he had power, he had people that listened to whatever he said, versus God and 2 Israelite men. one who had been a slave his whole life and one who was a shepherd and a murderer and wasn't good at speaking. But they had God on their side. That was the competition. So he told Moses, go back to Egypt. We're gonna start this battle. And I'm gonna let you know right now, I'm gonna win. You might think I might not win. You might think it's gonna be crazy. I promise it'll be crazy, but I'm gonna win. So Moses got his stuff together, grabbed his wife, grabbed his kids, grabbed his stuff, and moved back to Egypt because his goal was to let God's people go. In order to follow this battle of Pharaoh in Egypt versus God, we have a special reporter who's going to keep track of our score that's going to let us know along the way how the game's going and see who's winning. Round one is going to be Moses and his brother Aaron going before Pharaoh and saying, listen, Pharaoh, we're Team God and we challenge you to a game. We challenge you to a battle. Who's more powerful? And Pharaoh says, I don't know what you're gonna try and do, but you're not gonna win. You're not gonna take your people. They're my people now. You don't get to take them anywhere. And Moses and Aaron say, okay, let's go. You ready? Round one. And God used Moses and Aaron and sent his power to change all the water in all of Egypt to blood, which means they couldn't water their plants, they couldn't drink anything, they couldn't cook with water. Think of how much you use water, how much you need water. Round one, God turned all the water to blood. We see in Exodus chapters 7 through 11, all these battles are taking place and Pharaoh keeps trying to fight back, and we'll see how those all turn out. So, scorekeeper, how we doing? Who got the first point? Water to blood.
Well, I don't think I want to drink this, so I would say that God would get that point.
We call these rounds the plagues. That's how they refer to them in the Bible, in the book of Exodus. They call them plagues because they're different problems and different issues and different bothering things. I don't even know what else to call them, that disturb the kingdom of Egypt. Now, as these all come along, it's hurting the Pharaoh's family, and all the Egyptian people. And the Egyptian people are looking to their team captain, their coach, their king, their leader, and they're saying, come on, we got to do this together. We got to win. So round two comes along and they look to their leader. And then the Israelite people look to their leader, God. Round two comes along and God sends in masses of frogs. Hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions, we don't know. There were frogs everywhere. Frogs! What kind of plague is that? Well, it was probably really annoying. They probably got all into everything. And I mean, how does someone on earth like Pharaoh just come up with a ton of frogs and put them everywhere? Scorekeeper, who won this round? The frogs or Pharaoh?
Well, I like frogs. I think they're kind of cute, but not all in my stuff. So we're going to say Pharaoh lost this one.
That's what I thought too. And between every round, Moses goes back with Aaron to Pharaoh and says, let my people go. We don't have to fight another battle. We can make this work. If you just let the people go, then we'll end it and we'll just leave and you don't have to worry about anything else. But God was hardening Pharaoh's heart. God loved being able to show off how powerful he was. So, in order to keep showing the people how great he was and everything he could do, he repeatedly hardened Pharaoh's heart so Pharaoh continued to say no. And God sends gnats. Like those swarms of flies in the summer that you walk through and you go, those things, or like lice that crawl in your hair, or like the little bugs that crawl on your banana peel if you leave it there for too long, those are pretty nasty. And so he went to Pharaoh and he said, "Let my people go now?" And Pharaoh said, "No." So, who gets the point there with the gnats?
You know, the last one could have been cute, but I mean, gnats and lice, that's just gross. I don't think Pharaoh felt at all like a winner on that one.
Pharaoh refuses to let the people go. Round 4 comes along and we have flies. They're a little bit bigger than gnats. They're getting into everything. They probably can bite. They're probably driving the animals crazy. They're definitely driving the people crazy. And all of this is happening to the Egyptian people. And they're looking to their leader and they're saying, "Pharaoh, fight back." And Pharaoh's like, "There's nothing I can do. How am I supposed to get rid of all these gnats?" So, scorekeeper, or these flies. Sorry, scorekeeper. Who wins the next round with the flies?
You know, we're gonna give Jonna a little bit of a break. It sounds like she's having a little bit of trouble with her words, but in the meantime, these flies probably put God one more point up. Pharaoh isn't doing so great at this point.
Pharaoh is still saying he's not going to let the people go. So, what's he going to do next? What's God going to send their way? Do you know, scorekeeper? Do you know what the next round means?
You know, God is in the lead, but I think he can really pack a hard punch if he takes out some of their livestock, which is like their property and their meat.
Yes, round 5 is livestock. That means all their animals, everything that they ate for meat, everything that they used, maybe even if they had chickens, like to have eggs, everything that they used that had to do with animals, those animals started to die or get sick or be unable to be used. So the Egyptian people started starving. They started losing money because their livestock was their property. And they looked to the Pharaoh and they said, "Pharaoh, please do something." So Aaron and Moses go up to Pharaoh and they say, "Pharaoh, let the people go, and you don't have to fight another round." Who gets the point? God. God gets another point. At this point, we're looking at 5-0. We're flying through. God is dominating, and he's saying, "Come on, man. Come at me. What are you supposed to do? You're just a little earthly king, and you have my people." And if it comes down to it, when God's fighting, God's gonna win. So far, he's winning. Battle gets a little bit harder. Round 6, we have boils. Boils are like blisters. They're oozy and they're gross and they hurt and they're painful and they're red and you can't move. Have you ever gotten such a bad sunburn that your skin starts to bubble up and you can't really move? Or like you burn your hand on the pie pan or something? Or maybe, hopefully, when you were making our bread a minute ago, you didn't burn your hand on the oven. Usually when that happens, your skin boils up. Those boils all across your skin are super painful, and they're a little bit worse than just having flies everywhere. So I'm sure the Egyptian people were starting to get really upset that it looks like God's winning 6-0. Hail. We have hail falling from the sky. I don't know if you've ever seen hail, but they're like ice, like little rocks of ice, like pebbles falling from the sky. Sometimes hail can be as big as like a golf ball, and they're falling from the sky. I mean, if you were outside and it hit your head, that'd be painful. If it hits your trees, it's probably gonna damage your trees. If it hits your house, it might hurt your house. It's definitely hurting whatever animals are left. It's definitely hurting whatever plants are left, and the people, they're probably starting to get really frustrated with their team. They're saying, "Pharaoh, just let the people go already." So Moses goes up to Pharaoh and says, "You are losing. Right now, you're losing 7-0. Please just let the people go." And God still hardened Pharaoh's heart. And Pharaoh said, "No, because God was still showing the Egyptian people and the Israelite people that he was all powerful and there was nothing they could do to stop him. 7 rounds of just God dominating and winning after win and after win, and he's getting all these points, and there's nothing Pharaoh can do to stop it, but he's still letting it happen, and he's refusing to let God's people go. So round 8 comes along, and those are locusts. I don't know if you've ever seen a locust, but they're kind of like really big, like almost like grasshoppers, and they're really annoying, and they're loud, and they fly in swarms, and they eat everything. They eat all the plants, and they just destroy everywhere they go. Moses goes to Pharaoh with Aaron and says, Team God says, lighten up, just let the people go. We don't have to keep making things worse. And Pharaoh says, what else do we have to lose? Send us another round. I'm not letting your people go. So round 9 comes along. We're at round 9 of all this happening, and Pharaoh's still not letting the people go, but God is displaying his power, and everyone's realizing that the Israelite God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is winning. He is dominating, and we're on round 9, and he sends darkness all over the land. Darkness falls. They don't have street lights. They don't have flashlights. All they have is maybe candles, if those haven't been destroyed at this point. They can't go outside and work. Their plants that are left can't grow. They can't see where they're going. It's like blindness sent across the Egyptian people. And they're like, Pharaoh, surely there's something you can do to fix this. And Pharaoh says, fine, let the darkness rise, let it stop all your plagues, stop everything that's happening. So God stops it all. And then Pharaoh still says, you know what? I'm not letting your people go. It's not happening. No, they can't go. Right now, scorekeeper, how we doing? What are Pharaoh's rates looking like so far?
It's really not looking good for the Egyptian side of the team. I mean, God is up 8, now 9 points. If I were Pharaoh, I would give up now before things get really bad.
So now we have the biggest plague yet. The other things so far have been like an inconvenience. Maybe they hurt, maybe they ruin some things, but there's probably a degree of what do we have left to lose? God has destroyed everything at this point, but Pharaoh's being stubborn. So he has to do something even bigger, even more devastating than anything he's sent before. So this one, it's pretty serious. Round 10, God really needs Pharaoh to listen. God really needs to prove that not only is he more powerful than water, more powerful than frogs or flies or even the sun, which, I mean, the Egyptians, if you've ever heard, the Egyptians worshipped the sun. They called it Ra. It was the most amazing thing. They loved the sun. And God took it away. So what else can God show power over? Life and death. Moses says, this is your last chance. Let my people go. And when Pharaoh says no, God sends an angel through the Egyptian land and kills every firstborn son. Everyone that was the firstborn. If you are in a family and you're the oldest boy, you would have been killed because your leader, the Pharaoh, was not listening to God. He didn't know our bottom line for this week. When God's fighting a battle, he never loses. God's not gonna lose. He's not gonna just lighten up and let you win. No, God wins every time. And this was a big one. And he knew that this is what it was going to take to prove to everyone that he was the most powerful and he was the winner. And it was really serious and it was really heartbreaking, but it was also fantastic because the next day, after all of these boys had died, Moses and Aaron go back to Pharaoh and they say, Pharaoh, you've lost your oldest son. Now that you have a child die, will you listen? And Pharaoh said, fine, get out of here. Your people can go and your God wins. Scorekeeper, what was our final tally?
Well, Jonna, with that last point, that brings God to a 10. And I think he made the right decision to let the people go. If he would have stuck in the game very much longer, it wouldn't have worked out very well for him, I don't think. At least here, he could save his own life, let God take the lead. And honestly, I think God should have won from the beginning. I think that this was the preferred option, and I think that this is going to be what works out best for Israel and for the future of all who follow God.
10-0. 10 points to God. Pharaoh couldn't do anything to beat him, and finally he just gave up and said, your God is more powerful. Get your people out of here. I don't want them anymore. So he lets God's people go. And just a reminder, like I said a minute ago, when God is fighting a battle, he's not going to lose. So now that we've seen that God has won, we're going to learn a little bit more about why we had to make that special bread at the beginning. It just finished, so I'm going to put my apron back on and take that out of the oven. There it is. It looks so good. So, before the last plague, God warned the Israelites that this was going to be a big one, that it was something that they needed to prepare for because as soon as it was over, he knew that Pharaoh was going to let the people go. So he said, hurry up, get all your stuff together, start packing, start getting ready to go, because as soon as you have the go-ahead, you need to get out of here. You need to get out of Egypt. And he said, when you make your bread, when you get your food ready, you need to make sure that you can make it quickly and be ready to leave at any time. So that's why they made this type of bread, because this bread was easy to make quickly and easy to just pick up and take with you. So they had to get everything together. And as soon as the Pharaoh said, that's it, fine, get out. Your people can go. Moses, take your people and leave. Fine, your God wins. The people of the Israelite people were like, all right, this is our time. Get your stuff together. Grab your bread. We're going to head out and we're going to be free again. And that is how God rescued the people from being Pharaoh's slaves. After 400 years, he showed his magnificent power and convinced Pharaoh and Egypt and the Egyptians, and the Israelites, that God was extremely powerful and was worth more than anything that Egypt had to offer. So, next week we'll learn a little bit more about their escape. But for now, dig in. I'm dipping mine in honey. See you next week, HFC kids. Bye.
Yeah, you ask a good question. I think that it was good that they both showed up to play, because we got to see how much of a force to be reckoned with God's side really is. And yes, Pharaoh came to play with all the earthly power, but we saw very quickly that he was up against an omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent God. And when you're going up against an opponent like that, I don't think you have a chance. I think you should have just let the people go from the beginning? Yeah, good question. Next.